The significance of the Chernobyl disaster can be fully appreciated only after some time. In addition, Chernobyl as a phenomenon of planetary scale was different for everyone. For some people it was a few days in April, which took away their health forever. For others it was constant business trips to the disaster site. This will be a very interesting video. You will learn what it was like to be on a Chernobyl business trip for 20 years, how a toy tank was saving the world from radiation, why the classified scientists were taken to Vienna, why the KGB stole the secret report of the IA-8, and how Gorbachev did not give a hero's title for half a liter. There are very few people for whom the elimination of the Chernobyl accident has become the main thing in life. The head of the Chernobyl Problems Laboratory and advisor to the president of the Kurchatov Institute, Alexander Borovoy, worked for 20 years in the dangerous zone, where he led scientific research, and considers himself lucky in life. Alexander Alexandrovich, how did Chernobyl start for you? I guessed that something very serious had happened in Chernobyl in the morning of April 26. On the third floor of our building, in front of the office of the director of the Kurchatov Institute of Atomic Energy. Many people in the corridor were hastily writing something on pieces of paper, and the word Chernobyl was heard. At that time I headed a small group of experimental physicists. In 1984 we were the first in the USSR and on the whole continent to register reactor antineutrinos at the Rovna NPP and performed a number of interesting studies. To do this we had to learn to calculate quite accurately how radioactivity accumulates in the reactor. On the night of April 29, Spartak Timofeyevich Belayev, head of the Department of General and Nuclear Physics where I worked, called me and asked me to come urgently about the accident in Chernobyl. It was necessary to estimate how much and what kind of radioactivity had accumulated in the fuel of Unit 4 during its operation. The standard calculations were highly inaccurate. They differed tenfold from what the radiochemical analyses of the first air and soil samples showed. This is why Belayev sat us down for new calculations. There were no calculating machines at hand, so each member of the group read some piece of the program, handing the results to the other. In a little over a day, we got the results. Much later, dozens of laboratories conducted the same calculations and it turned out that we were wrong by no more than 20%, quite enough accuracy. As the days went by, it became clear that it would not be possible to solve problems quickly from Moscow over the phone. A simple example, a call comes in from Chernobyl and they report that, apparently, almost all the fuel from the reactor has been thrown into the engine room. Why such suspicions? The specialists drove an armored vehicle along the wall of the reactor hall and measured the dose. At a certain point, it suddenly increased many times over. There were 15, 18, 20 X-rays per hour and suddenly 2,000 all at once. Then the dose would drop sharply again. There was a slit in the wall opposite this point, through which it was assumed that the light was shining. I quickly worked out that in order to make this possible, I should have piled many tons of fuel in the engine room to this crack, but even then the readings would grow much more smoothly. It turned out that during the measurements the dosimeter in this place was lowered directly on the piece of the discarded fuel assembly. More and more questions arose and therefore it became clear to me we should go to Chernobyl. The accident coincided with another disaster. My mother was dying of cancer. I remember how I told her, who was practically motionless already, uttering words with difficulty, that I was working in the task force which was helping Chernobyl with calculations and experiments. Mom immediately remembered that Chernobyl was a variety of wormwood, a bitter prairie grass. And suddenly she asked me to open the Bible, which was always with her. I read the words from the book of Revelation of John the Evangelist, which would later be quoted hundreds of times in connection with the Chernobyl disaster. The third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and the springs of water. The name of this star is wormwood. My mother looked intently into my eyes. My little sunshine, go there. I will be better soon. You have to go, I know it, I can feel it. Chernobyl is your star, you can't escape your destiny, your place is there. On the eve of my departure for Chernobyl there was my mother's funeral, and before that I was summoned by Alexandrov. He was sitting terribly tired in his office, where he was apparently day and night, and by that time he was over 80, and said, "I'm sending you not only to work in the task force, but also to attend meetings of the government commission. You need someone there who understands nuclear physics. Don't worry if no one will listen to your suggestions. But if they start to take up something that should not be done in any case, if it leads to overexposure of people, contact the head of the task force, call me and stop it by all means. I went, not knowing yet that I would travel this route hundreds of times and live up to the schedule, 18 days in Chernobyl, the time I was allowed to spend there, 12 days in Moscow. The trip stretched over 20 years. I remember my first trip up the Dnieper in the raquette and changing into working clothes, threaded socks, soldier's underwear, and a suit of protective color. I remember the words "Welcome to Chernobyl," spoken from the captain's bridge. I was met totally unexpectedly in the government commission to which I was supposed to be a consultant. Can you tell me in Russian who you are? Can you name your profession? I answered that I was a physicist. We don't need physicists. What the hell do we need physicists for? We need specialists in reactors. The liquidators who arrived at the scene of the Chernobyl accident saw a terrible picture of the devastation. This is what the 4th Power Unit looked like on May 24, 1986. Many times later I sat in a corner at commission meetings, surrounded by people in cotton wool jackets with general stars drawn on their shoulders, directors of institutes and ministers. Boris Yevdokimovich Skrbina, then deputy chairman of the Council of Ministers and chairman of the commission, would periodically call Prime Minister Ryzhkov right from there. It was absolutely unbelievable for me to get into these circles, so I was afraid to say anything unnecessary. Several times I raised my hand, believing that it was possible to find a cheaper and better solution. Words were not given to me. Everything changed after one incident. On October 21, 1986, in the midst of the work on the construction of the shelter, I was found by Valery A. Legasov, academician, deputy director of our institute and a member of the government commission, and he took me straight to the cabinet Shcherbina. He broke the news: a chain reaction had apparently begun in the reactor. 3 events occurred almost simultaneously. The temperature began to rise in the lower rooms of the block, the aerosol activity in the air on the site increased, and the helicopter pilots who flew over the block every day reported that the dose over the rupture was 35 X-rays per hour, 4 times more than the day before. I had to quickly assess what was going on because there were thousands of people on the site. I asked how much time we had. "I can give you an hour." Immediately a special person from the KGB was assigned to me, who recorded all my actions and orders and made me sign every piece of paper, as in an interrogation. I will tell you about what happened next in the next part of the video. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Give it a thumbs up. Tell us interesting facts you know about the topic of this video. See you in new videos.